What's up with everybody? It's your man Mario B.
And
I'm
Nicole.
back at it with some more reaction videos. Special view request from Matthew Man. He's a huge supporter of our channel. He wants to react to
10 unusual kids who live in giant bubbles.
what?
Maybe
Giant
they're like
bubbles.
kids that have like allergies and live in bubbles.
Oh,
Something I can
okay.
think of.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Guess we'll find
It's
out.
from the channel The Richest. So we definitely looking forward to checking this out. We thank you, Matthew Man, for support, and let's dive right into it.
Kids just want to be kids, playing
Yeah, kids
outside,
wanna be
getting
kids.
dirty, and enjoying every day. For some kids, though, their health can get in the
Told
way
ya.
of that fun,
Yeah.
leaving them at the mercy of their disease. Here are 10 real kids who live in bubbles. Ted DeVita. Born in 1962, Ted DeVita spent more than
Oh, wow, he's
18
like-
years
Kid
in a
anymore.
sterile hospital
Yeah,
with
he's
Lewis
like
condition.
gonna be
Ted suffers
48
from
this year. I
severe
mean, 58 this year.
aplastic anemia, a rare disease that causes the body to stop producing new platelets and blood cells. It
Damn.
effectively destroys the immune system, leaving the patient vulnerable to infection and
Oh,
illness. He was
snap.
admitted
He
to the
can get sick
National
easily in
Institute of
that.
Health Clinical Center for treatment. He was able to move around the sterilized room, but could not be touched by ungloved hands
Oh,
or
gosh.
interact with
That would
anything.
be
That,
so
that'll
hard.
just suck to live
Contaminated
like that.
Yeah.
He was able to leave his room in a specialized suit with an air pump that expelled pathogens, but he was self-conscious and rarely ventured outside. He
Yeah.
died in 1980 from an
Oh.
iron overload after too many
Oh,
trips.
So he's
Wow.
18. Going on 18.
Wilco Conradi. In Amsterdam, Wilco Conradi was the fourth member of his family to be born with severe combined immunodeficiency.
Oh, wow.
For the first few months of his life, little Wilco lived in a germ-proof plastic enclosure to protect him from infections. In 2002, he and 4 other boys underwent a new gene therapy technique at the hospital Necker Enfants Malades in Paris. Using genetically modified stem cells, the boys were cured of their
Wow.
disease.
Oh, this is
Unlike
up.
other treatments, Wilco only had to receive 1 injection and will only need to be monitored as he grows rather than
Wow.
needing daily medications
Yeah, this
and
is up.
follow-up injections.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Seth Lane. Born with a condition called severe combined immunodeficiency, a disease that causes him to have no immune
Oh.
system, Seth Lane lived his life in a sterile, germ-free environment after he received a bone marrow transfer to aid in managing his condition. The first transplant didn't take, forcing him to stay in his bubble to avoid illnesses and infection. So his parents came up with an idea to help support his second transplant. Wear yellow for Seth. On March 27th, 2015, hundreds of thousands of people,
Yeah, we're
including
yellow.
some of Hollywood's well-known stars, wore yellow shirts to show their support for the little boy. Thankfully, his second transplant took, and he now lives a normal life in England with his
wow.
parents.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Jameson Galaday. In order to venture outside as a toddler, Jameson Galaday needed to be pushed in a stroller with an enclosed bubble to protect him from infections. Jameson was born with no immune system
See,
due
it's
to
all the
severe
immune
combined
system
Yeah.
immunodeficiency. Due to his illness, Jameson was not able to interact physically with his brother Sean, other children, or play on park equipment due to the risks of infection. He wasn't diagnosed until he was nearly a year old. At first, doctors thought he was suffering from a B cell lymphoma due to a cluster of B cells gathering in his hip as they
Ew.
tried to fight
Yeah.
an infection. But tests later revealed XSCID. In April 2012, his parents brought him to Cincinnati Children's Hospital to participate in a gene therapy trial. Following his treatments, he was slowly able to begin exploring the
Wow.
world around him without his bubble. He continues to improve every day and
That's
lives
cool.
a fairly normal life.
It's kind of cool they've been
Guy
able to
Pearce.
treat it with gene therapy.
Severe combined immunodeficiency, sometimes known as the bubble boy disease, as most
Yeah.
types only affect males, causes babies to be born with
Interesting.
virtually no immune system.
Huh.
Guy Pearce of Nottingham, England, was born with this horrible condition in 2005.
Wow.
He spent several months of his life in a sterile environment prior to an experimental procedure in order to avoid infection. Without an immune system, every virus, fungi,
Yeah.
or bacteria that other children face in their daily lives could have
Yep.
killed him. The treatment he received created a fully functioning version of the mutated gene that causes the disease because no bone marrow matches could be found for him at the time. While he now leads a normal life, his parents say that he does seem to be more susceptible to minor illnesses and tends to stay sick longer than other children.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Gabriel Solis. When Gabriel Solis was a little over 4 months old, he was admitted to the intensive care unit in La Serena, Chile, with a high fever. He was suffering from pneumonia and needed to be put on a ventilator before being transferred to the Santa Maria Clinic in Santiago. There, his parents discovered that their son suffered from the X-linked type of severe combined immunodeficiency. His blood did not contain T cells, which form the
Damn.
immune system, so he was placed in a
That's like crazy.
sterilized isolation room for 5 months while receiving treatment. Rather than risk a bone marrow transplant, Gabriel's parents opted for a gene therapy trial at the Boston Children's Cancer and Blood Disorder Center in April 2012. Today, he is thriving, but due to the risk of developing leukemia following the trial,
wow.
Gabriel must be monitored for the remainder of his life.
Dang.
Yeah.
Nina Warnell. Baby Nina Warnell and her family were living in Poland when the little girl fell ill in March 2012. Doctors told her family that she could have only months to live, so
Yeah.
they moved to Maidenhead, Berkshire. Nina suffered from a very rare form of severe combined immunodeficiency, which caused her adenosine deaminase enzyme to be faulty. Her condition made it necessary for disinfection of the entire home regularly, as even a single cough or sneeze could be deadly to their baby.
Damn.
Afraid to
Isn't that
risk a
crazy?
dangerous
Yeah.
bone marrow transplant, her family opted for an experimental treatment in London. She was the first girl to undergo the procedure, which creates an artificial immune system maintained with medication and immunoglobulin transfusions every 3 weeks. She needed to be kept in isolation during her treatment, but now leads a relatively
That's
ordinary
it.
life.
She's 8 years old now. Well, turned to
Rhys
8 this year.
Evans.
That's true, yeah.
Rhys Evans was born suffering from the X-linked type of severe combined immunodeficiency, a very rare condition that only affects a handful of children in the UK each year. He was diagnosed at 4 months old and began an experimental treatment in 2001. Using stem cells, the Great Ormond Street Hospital in London was able to cure Rhys. During his treatments, he needed to be kept in a sterile room away from any possible infections in order to protect his weak immune system. He was the first boy in the UK to be cured using this treatment,
Wow.
which is an alternative method if no bone marrow match can be found. Colton and Abigail Ainsley. Arizona's siblings Colton and Abigail Ainsley both suffered from a rare form of severe combined immunodeficiency, which caused their adenosine deaminase enzyme to be faulty and weakened their immune systems. Colton was born prematurely at 26 weeks and was diagnosed with SCID soon afterward. In order to help their son, his parents flew to Los Angeles to meet with Dr. Donald Kahn, one of the leading doctors in ADA-deficient SCID. Colton underwent a low dose of chemotherapy at the University of California before beginning gene therapy to save his life. Several years later, their daughter Abigail was
Dang.
also
Can you
born with
imagine?
Yeah,
disease and
both
underwent
kids.
similar treatment, though she received a higher dose of chemotherapy than her brother did. Both children will need treatments for the rest of their lives, but now have functioning immune systems, allowing them to live normal lives.
I wonder did they
David
inherit
Vetter.
it from one of the
In the
parents.
1970s, young David
Probably.
Vetter became known as the boy in the bubble due to the bubble-like
Yeah.
environment he was forced to live in. David suffered from severe combined immunodeficiency. For 12 years, he lived in his bubble at the Texas Children's Hospital and was unable to have direct contact with another human being. At one
Jeez,
time,
that's gotta be
NASA
so
had
hard.
even fashioned a special spacesuit that would enable him to walk around outside, but he only used it 6 times. Everything he touched needed to be sterilized. Sadly, he passed away in 1984, 4 months after receiving a bone marrow transfusion.
Oh,
Damn.
jeez.
Well, folks,
Yeah, it was crazy, man.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy
Yeah.
how that happens.
It is,
It's-
man. Think about that type of stuff.
It's cool to see, though, that they, for most of these cases, obviously not the ones that were a really long time ago, but they've come up with treatments that
Yeah,
have actually cured a lot of them.
technology,
So
yeah.
that's at least helpful.
Yeah, it's a great thing about technology and stuff, and you know how we advance in medicine. It gives people a
Better
way to
chance.
live, a way to
Yeah.
live longer and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, this was definitely a great one, man.
It was
Definitely.
totally interesting. I
Yeah,
really
you
liked
learn
seeing some
about
of
this,
stuff.
and you know some of the people are still alive today. They might have to take like the treatments for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, there were a lot of kids that were like completely cured and some
Yeah.
that weren't, but still led a normal life. So
Yeah.
it was good.
yeah, man, we definitely thank you, Matthew,
Yeah,
man,
thank
for
you.
this awesome video quest. But we're gonna end this video. Don't forget to subscribe,
And thumbs it up.
turn on notifications. It's your man, Warrior B.
And Nicole.
I'm gonna catch you for the next awesome. Peace and love.